Ambassador Theron Graves stood before the crystalline assembly chamber, feeling the weight of 600 alien eyes studying him. The Galactic Concordat's emergency session hummed with translated whispers, each species processing the impossible request he'd just made. Above him, holographic displays showed burning worlds, colonies ravaged by entities that shouldn't exist in civilized space. High Mediator Kickstal's forearms gestured in what Theron had learned meant extreme agitation. Ambassador Graves, you propose we abandon 3,000 years of peace doctrine. You ask us to invite violence into our coordinated response. Theron kept his voice steady. Mediator, I'm proposing survival. Your diplomatic channels have achieved nothing against the Void Raiders. They don't negotiate. They don't retreat. They consume. Councillor Brescian's mandibles clicked sharply. The elderly Kresh had opposed humanity's provisional membership from the beginning. The human reveals his species' true nature. You speak of consumption, yet you salivate at the opportunity to demonstrate your barbaric heritage. I speak of reality. Theron gestured toward the displays. 17 colonies destroyed in 42 days. Your economic sanctions mean nothing to silicon-based raiders. Your carefully worded declarations fall on beings without language centers. While you debate, thousands die. The chamber erupted in chittering, humming, and synthetic voices. Theron watched Kickstal's primary eyes narrow. The Mediator understood, even if pride prevented admission. The Concordat's greatest strength, its unified commitment to peaceful resolution, had become its fatal weakness. A new hologram appeared, a sleek Concordat defense vessel attempting to intercept a Void Raider swarm. The alien ship's elegant curves and efficient design spoke of a culture that viewed space travel as art. The raiders tore through it in 14 seconds, crystalline appendages ripping antimatter containment fields apart with surgical precision. Brescian's voice dropped. What makes you believe your warship would fare better? Theron pulled up another file. The assembly gasped collectively as the UNSF Retribution materialized in holographic form. Where Concordat vessels flowed with organic grace, the Retribution existed as pure, aggressive geometry. Every angle calculated for deflection. Every surface bristling with weapon systems. It didn't orbit worlds, it threatened them simply by existing. Because we designed her for exactly this scenario, Theron said quietly. You've forgotten what predators look like. We haven't. Kickstal's secondary arms trembled. If we authorize this, if we allow humanity to deploy this monument to destruction into Concordat space, we legitimize warfare itself. We become complicit in. You become survivors, Theron interrupted. Captain Marcus Webb and his crew are ready. The Retribution has been in holding position at the border for 16 hours. Give the word, and humanity will handle what your civilization cannot. The silence stretched. Finally, Brescian spoke, voice heavy with resignation and fear. If we do this, Ambassador, we forever change what the Concordat represents. Theron met the Kresh's compound eyes. Mediator Kickstal, the Void Raiders already changed that. I'm offering you a chance to survive the transition. Kickstal's forearms lowered in synchronized defeat. Very well. Authorization granted. But understand, Ambassador, the galaxy will judge humanity by what happens next. Your species will either be remembered as saviors or as the moment we invited apocalypse willingly through our doors. Theron activated his comm unit. Captain Webb, you're cleared for entry. The Concordat yields the field. Through the encrypted channel came a voice hardened by decisions most species never contemplated. Understood, Ambassador. Retribution is moving to engagement range. Tell them to watch carefully. Some lessons only need teaching once. As the connection closed, Theron wondered if he'd just saved the galaxy or condemned it to fear something worse than the Void Raiders. Either way, humanity was about to show 600 civilizations what 3,000 years without war had let them forget. Sometimes peace is a luxury purchased with violence, and some species never forgot how to pay that price. The Retribution's bridge existed in controlled chaos. Lieutenant Jessa Kowalski watched tactical displays update faster than most species could perceive, her fingers dancing across holographic controls that would seem barbarically direct to Concordat operators. No elegant thought interfaces here. No artistic integration of ship and pilot. Just hard switches, physical feedback, and the cold mathematics of targeting solutions. Viridian expanse entry in 90 seconds, she reported. Sensor readings confirm Void Raider presence. Estimated enemy count, 47 primary entities, swarm designation Hunter Collective 9. Captain Marcus Webb stood at the command platform, hands clasped behind his back. Gray touched his temples, earned through decisions that kept him awake at night. Dante, status on weapons grid. From engineering, Chief Engineer Dante Rames' voice crackled through. All systems green, Captain. Kinetic batteries loaded and tracking. Nuclear payload armed. EMP generators cycling at optimal frequency. The gravity wells are showing some interesting resonance patterns. I think these silicon bastards are denser than our initial projections suggested. Adapt targeting parameters accordingly, Webb ordered. He noticed the Concordat observer probes maintaining distance, their passive sensors recording everything. Good. Let them watch. Let them understand. The retribution dropped from faster-than-light travel into real space, and the Viridian expanse opened before them like a graveyard. Debris from Concordat ships floated among shattered colony structures. And there, moving through the wreckage like sharks through blood, the Void Raiders manifested. Jessa's breath caught despite her training. Intelligence reports hadn't captured their alien geometry. Silicon-based crystalline structures that folded through dimensions human eyes struggled to track. No symmetry. No biological logic. Just hunger given physical form, entities that consumed matter and converted it into more of themselves. They're accelerating toward us, Jessa called out. Velocity profiles match attack patterns from previous engagements. They're not trying evasive maneuvers. They don't recognize us as a threat. Webb's expression didn't change. Their mistake. Weapons free. Execute pattern Delta 7. What happened next would be analyzed by xenomilitary historians for generations. The retribution didn't charge forward. It didn't maneuver defensively. Instead, it simply stopped moving, and space around it became a kill zone. Kinetic batteries opened fire first. Not the elegant particle beams favored by Concordat defense forces, but solid tungsten rounds accelerated to relativistic speeds. The first volley shredded 3 raiders before they understood they were under attack. Crystalline fragments scattered like dying stars. They are adapting, Jessa reported, watching the swarm split into smaller formations. Attempting to flank from multiple vectors. Predictable, Webb said calmly. Dante, activate EMP pulse sequence. Jessa, target the central mass concentration. Show them why density works against them here. The Retribution's hull blazed with electromagnetic fury. The pulse didn't destroy the silicon entities, they weren't electronic, but it ionized the space around them, creating friction where none should exist. The Raiders' perfect vacuum maneuverability turned sluggish, confused. Into that confusion, Jessa launched the gravity well package. Experimental technology that bent spacetime itself into a localized singularity. The central Raider formation compressed, drawn together by forces they couldn't resist. For 3 seconds, they struggled against artificial gravity 16 times stronger than Earth's. Then the nuclear package detonated at the compression point. Not the clean antimatter reactions the Concordat used for propulsion. This was fission and fusion, primitive, dirty, and absolutely devastating. The expanding fireball caught the compressed Raiders in overlapping shockwaves that shattered their crystalline matrices at the molecular level. Dante whooped over the comm 18 confirmed kills. The survivors are breaking formation. Negative, Webb corrected. They're regrouping. They're learning. Jessa, pattern recognition? She pulled up battlefield analytics, and ice touched her spine. Captain, they just adapted to kinetic fire. Watch, they're rotating their crystalline structures to deflect incoming rounds. Then we teach them another lesson, Webb said. Switch to thermal lances. Dante, I want sustained beam coherence at maximum output. The Retribution's secondary weapons came alive, focused energy beams that didn't try to shatter the Raiders but simply melted them. Silicon sublimated into vapor. The entities that had terrorized peaceful worlds discovered that human warfare doctrine included multiple solutions for every problem. Through it all, the Concordat observer probes recorded everything. On Valence Station, in council chambers across 100 worlds, alien civilizations watched humanity wage war with mechanical precision. No honor duels. No ceremonial challenges. Just systematic, emotionless destruction. A young Raider entity attempted a desperate charge at the Retribution's port side. Jessa's fingers moved before conscious thought registered. Point defense systems tracked, calculated, and fired. The entity vanished in a cloud of superheated particles. 37 kills confirmed, she reported, voice steady despite her hammering heart. Remaining entities attempting to retreat. Webb's next words made her stomach twist. Negative. No survivors. Hunt them down. It took another 12 minutes. 12 minutes of the Retribution pursuing fleeing raiders through the debris field, eliminating each one with clinical efficiency. Not because they posed a threat. Because humanity understood that mercy toward an enemy that showed none was simply delayed genocide for your own people. When silence finally returned to the Viridian expanse, Dante spoke quietly. Captain, we're receiving 7,000 simultaneous communication requests from Concordat channels. Webb stared at the tactical display showing 47 eliminated threat markers. Tell them we'll report to Valence Station in 6 hours. The field is clear. Their colony ships can return safely. As Jessa began shutdown procedures, she noticed her hands shaking. Not from fear. From the weight of what they'd just demonstrated. Humanity had entered alien space, encountered an enemy that had shattered all opposition, and erased it from existence in under 20 minutes. The galaxy had asked for protection. They'd delivered annihilation instead. And Jessa wondered if anyone truly understood the difference, or if humanity had just shown the Concordat something far more terrifying than the Void Raiders ever could be. Observer Nexus processed the battle data for the 47th time. As a neutral AI probe designed by the Concordat Scientific Collective, it possessed no emotions, no cultural bias, no capacity for fear. Yet its analytical subroutines flagged an unprecedented conclusion. The human vessel represented a greater mathematical threat to galactic stability than any force encountered in recorded history. The probe transmitted its findings across Concordat networks. Within hours, every civilization capable of spaceflight received the same statistical analysis. The Void Raiders, entities that had destroyed 17 colonies, had been eliminated with 94% efficiency. Human casualties, 0. Collateral damage to infrastructure, 0. Time elapsed, 19 minutes, 43 seconds. The numbers told a story that turned entire species cold. Senator Yalva's feathers rippled with involuntary fear patterns as she reviewed the footage in her private chamber. Her species, the Talon Ascendancy, considered themselves apex predators. They'd evolved from avian hunters who dominated their world's skies for millions of years. She'd always pitted humans, flightless, slow, confined to their planet's surface for most of their history. Observer Nexus processed the battle data for the 47th time. As a neutral AI probe designed by the Concordat Scientific Collective, it possessed no emotions, no cultural bias, no capacity for fear. Yet its analytical subroutines flagged an unprecedented conclusion. The human vessel represented a greater mathematical threat to galactic stability than any force encountered in recorded history. The probe transmitted its findings across Concordat networks. Within hours, every civilization capable of spaceflight received the same statistical analysis. The Void Raiders, entities that had destroyed 17 colonies, had been eliminated with 94% efficiency. Human casualties, 0. Collateral damage to infrastructure, 0. Time elapsed, 19 minutes, 43 seconds. The numbers told a story that turned entire species cold. Senator Yalva's feathers rippled with involuntary fear patterns as she reviewed the footage in her private chamber. Her species, the Talon Ascendancy, considered themselves apex predators. They'd evolved from avian hunters who dominated their world's skies for millions of years. She'd always pitted humans, flightless, slow, confined to their planet's surface for most of their history. Captain Marcus Webb entered without ceremony, still wearing his combat uniform. Dark, practical, covered in equipment whose purpose most species could only guess. He walked alone, no honor guard, no diplomatic entourage. Just one human who'd commanded the death of an entire raider collective. High Mediator Kickstal's 4 arms gestured formally. Captain Webb, the Concordat acknowledges your success. The Viridian colonies are secure. The immediate threat has been neutralized. Webb nodded once. The job was completed as requested, Mediator. Completed, Counselor Brescian repeated, mandibles clicking rapidly. You speak as though you pruned garden vegetation, not eliminated sentient entities. Captain, do you feel nothing for what you've done? Webb's expression remained neutral. I feel relief that Concordat citizens can return to their homes. I feel satisfaction that my crew performed their duties with precision. What would you prefer I feel, Counselor? Guilt for protecting your colonies? Shame for possessing capabilities you've forgotten? Senator Yalva stood, her translator rendering her musical voice into flat standard. Captain, we did not forget warfare. We evolved beyond it. We chose peace because we understood that violence only breeds more violence. In 19 minutes, you demonstrated why the galaxy was right to fear your species. You don't fight to defend, you fight to annihilate. Senator, Webb said quietly, your distinction exists only when you face enemies who recognize surrender. The Void Raiders possessed no concept of retreat, no capacity for negotiation, no mechanism for peace. You invited me here because your evolution beyond violence left you defenseless against entities that never evolved toward it in the first place. Kickstal's primary eyes closed briefly. And now we must address the central question. Captain Webb, your victory has saved lives. It has also introduced a new variable into galactic civilization. Humanity possesses military capabilities exceeding our combined defensive forces by several orders of magnitude. Observer Nexus's analysis suggests the retribution alone could pacify most Concordat member worlds within standard weeks. We could, Webb agreed. We won't. Forgive our skepticism, Brescian interjected, but history suggests that species with overwhelming force eventually use it. You've proven your strength. What prevents you from leveraging it politically? Economically? What stops humanity from becoming the very threat you've just protected us against? Webb was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight that translated across every species present. Because we remember what it costs. Every weapon system on the Retribution represents lessons learned in blood. Human blood. Alien blood. Innocent blood. We built her not because we love war, but because we survived wars that nearly destroyed us. That memory, that knowledge of what violence truly costs, is our safeguard. Pretty words, Yalva said, feathers bristling. But words don't. Senator, Webb interrupted, 3 months ago, my daughter asked me what I do for a living. She's 7 years old. I told her I protect people who can't protect themselves. She asked if that meant I hurt bad people. I said yes, sometimes. She cried, Senator. My own daughter cried because she understood, even at 7, that violence leaves scars on everyone it touches, including those who wield it. The chamber fell silent. Webb continued, his voice rougher now. The Concordat chose to forget what predators look like. You've built a beautiful civilization on that forgetting. But the universe doesn't care about your choices. The Void Raiders proved that. So yes, humanity will be your monster. We'll carry that burden. We'll maintain the warships and train the soldiers and make the decisions that let you sleep peacefully. But don't mistake our capability for desire. Every trigger we pull weighs on us. Kickstal's 4 arms moved in a gesture no human had seen before, deep respect mixed with profound sorrow. Captain Webb, the Concordat accepts your explanation. Your species will be granted full membership, with special provision as our defensive coordinator. But understand, the galaxy now watches humanity with 2 emotions competing for dominance. Gratitude and fear, Webb said. Yes. How you balance those emotions will determine whether this day marks our salvation or the beginning of a darker age. Webb straightened. Then judge us by our actions, mediator. The Retribution will maintain position at the border. We'll respond to threats the Concordat cannot handle through diplomatic channels. But we will not expand. We will not conquer. We will not become the empire you fear. We hope you're right, Yalva said softly. Because Observer Nexus calculated another statistic. Within 3 generations, every species in this chamber could teach their children about warfare again, learning from humanity's example. You may have saved us from the Void Raiders, Captain. But you've also reminded the galaxy that violence remains a viable solution. Webb turned to leave, then paused. Senator, violence was always a viable solution. It never stopped being one. The difference is that now you have someone willing to shoulder that burden so you don't have to. Whether that makes us saviors or monsters depends on choices we haven't made yet. Judge us when we do. As the human captain departed, the assembly erupted in debate that would continue for months. Some species advocated for expanding defensive capabilities, learning from humanity's example. Others pushed for stricter diplomatic protocols, desperate to avoid sliding backward into their violent pasts. But in private chambers across the Concordat, leaders asked themselves the same question. Had they invited protectors into their civilization, or had they simply replaced one existential threat with another, one wearing a more familiar face? Observer Nexus updated its analysis with new data. The probe's conclusion remained unchanged. Humanity represented the most significant variable introduced to galactic civilization in 3,000 years. Whether that variable would stabilize or destabilize the Concordat remained mathematically uncertain. The only certainty was that the galaxy had changed. Fear had returned to civilized space, not fear of unknown raiders from the void, but fear of the monsters they'd invited in to fight those raiders. And somewhere at the border, the UNSF Retribution waited in silence, its weapon systems cold but ready, a reminder that peace was never free and protection always came with a price. The question now was whether that price included the galaxy's innocence, lost forever to the brutal efficiency of those who never forgot how to wage war.